Yes.
We in here, baby.
Let's get it.
Beautiful people, we are back. It's
Like
been
we
a,
never left.
it's been a long ass time too. I think we was doing the math. It's been like 2.5 years, but don't trip. We'll catch you up on all the bullshit and the good in between. So can Rob, what's good?
I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to be here with the two of you. It seems like, we were upset about things not getting off the ground like they were supposed to, but now looking at you guys all on this screen, it's like, no, this is how it was always supposed to be. It brought us here. So I'm grateful and excited.
Yeah, same. Thankful for all the distress that led up to this point because I don't believe there's any mistakes, you know. So
Yep.
we're moving past the grieving stages of what was and back in a renewed spirit to be even better in 2020.
Absolutely. Maybe since it's been a while too, maybe we go ahead and reintroduce ourselves. So for those who know us, what's good? Welcome back. For those who don't, I guess since I threw it out, I can go first. Tristan Mitchell, LCSW here at Soco Ray Therapy. Been doing this for a while. Got my hands on a lot of things, focusing on a whole bunch of different topics. Love working with Black men, Black people, helping people adjust to life, just everyday life shit. But I guess that's me in a nutshell, and hopefully you'll get to know me a little better through this experience.
I'm Soco Reynoso, owner and founder of Soco Ray Therapy, a private mental health agency in Inglewood, California. And I'm so grateful to be able to work with Tris and Rob. We really are trying to change what therapy looks and feels like for others and make it something that we want to be involved in and those we know want to be involved in. And that's me.
Hey, Robin here, your favorite hip hop head. Last time I was an associate, now I'm licensed. So I am a licensed clinical social worker for almost 2 years now. Still very much so passionate about working with people who are experiencing anxiety and just life adjustments because life be lifing out here. And we all need support, and we need support that feels approachable and relatable. So we are all at Soco Ray Therapy trying to continue that work and make everyone feel comfortable with this process of growth and healing so that we can learn to navigate a world that be out here in these streets acting up. So here we are. I'm so glad to be back.
Yeah.
All right. So should I start us off with a check-in question?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. Question is, what are you feeling good about right now?
Ooh.
For me, I'm feeling like it's an easy call because I naturally want to say this, like getting back to it, and we'll dive into all of that in a bit. But just the journey of getting here, and even picking back up, and again, life be life, and so even the three of us coordinating life and figuring out and carving out time, like just in general, appreciative of the journey, but feeling good that just to be here, to see to have our little shit and our names and stuff on the thing. So I'd say that's my moment of gratitude.
Thank you, Tris. What about you, Rob? What you feeling good about right now?
I'm feeling good about my ability to hold space for myself lately. Like just in the time that we've all been away from one another, right? Just kind of like adjusting to all of life and just really like pouring into what I think I needed. And, that's why I feel like there's no mistakes because sometimes we need the space to really get back to who we are in this moment. And so I feel very grounded in that. So I feel like that's, the best place to be in to really be able to give, to those around me and in this practice and in this particular space. So I'm happy to be here.
Love it.
Flipping it back on you. What about you, Soap?
Yeah, I'm usually going to ask a question because it's something I'm thinking about for myself. So, I got to answer. I feel good about what it feels like is the past 2 years has been like a destruction of what I thought was a foundation. So like pieces fragmented apart, kind of like Pangea, right? Like all the crusts moved. And I feel like new crust, somewhat composed of old stuff, but also composed of new stuff, is formulating below me now, and I have a better ground. So I'm really grateful to have my footing coming back. It feels exciting physically, spiritually, emotionally. Like everything just feels like it's being bound together in a strong way. So it's basically, I think, like when I think in terms of healing, it's like not even integrating. I'm in the healing phase, like where I'm not walking through the shit. Now I'm like coming out of the shit.
Mm-hmm.
So that feels beautiful because when you're in the shit, you're like, okay, how long am I gonna be here though? So when you feel those dishes out, it's like, thank you, thank you, thank you, just thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that consistent like battle of, go ahead, Rob.
No, go ahead, Tris.
I was just gonna say, in that consistent battle of like logically knowing that this won't last always, but emotionally feeling like I've been here a pretty long fucking time.
Too long?
Uh-huh.
Hell yeah, hell yeah. Feeling like everything is falling apart, even though consciously we know it's probably falling together. It's probably, for some greater good. But when you're in it, it definitely is like, yeah, so when we gonna move through
Make it, right? Yes, exactly. But
Yeah.
we're here.
And we encourage y'all to consider that same question for yourselves. Just what are you feeling good about? Like really recognizing too. So I guess this is me now circling back and adding on to my answer too. Now that I hear y'all actually gave meaningful shit. But I think too, just learning to be okay in the present and like whatever it has to offer and taking the moments to check in to see how you're feeling. Like, what are you feeling good about? I think often we're hyper aware of what we ain't feeling good about, but are we taking moments to see what we do feel good about? So whether now or after, for sure, take a few seconds to just sit with what are you feeling good about and approaching that with no judgment. Whatever comes up, let it be. So as we talk about what we feeling good about and being back and all that good stuff, we feel like we owe it to y'all to touch on just kind of what happened, just and not a deep dive, but just catching y'all up on what the hell's been happening. We was here, we was off to a great start, then y'all ain't seen us. So um, let's get into that a little bit.
Well, we got fucked over. No, we you guys, y'all chime in. I'll start it. We were approached by a group of men who said they wanted to help us, and they showed up and they helped us until they couldn't. And there wasn't very great communication through that, so we let that go. And then magically, one of their partners who had disappeared reappeared and seemed like he was an ally to us and showed up and was like, I'm gonna do it for you. And so we booked a weekend, we bought food for the crew, we invited people to the show, we scripted it. We really actually worked hard, I feel like, the second go around. And we didn't secure a contract. And honestly, I don't think if we secured a contract, it would even matter. With someone who doesn't have integrity, you can't serve them. They're not going to show up anyway. What are we going to do? Sue them? They're not going to give us what we want. So we got burned twice is how I see it. But also, like Rob said, burned for a good reason. Now we know to move forward, who to trust, how to trust. And I think ultimately, like, for me, it's trusting myself and the evidence rather than idealizing and taking people for what they say they are, but instead like watching them and how they move.
Yeah.
So yeah, now we know, I think, a little better about who to partner with as a result of that.
Right, right. And we try to give a lot of space and understanding for things happen in people's lives, and you just never know what's going on. But after a certain point, we had to let that thing go. And I think that at the end of the day, sometimes it's the best thing that has ever happened, because it brings us back to this space where you know we're in control of something, and we don't have to worry about outside entities that may or may not follow through. I mean, there was still, I think, a huge grief process around the work that we did, right? I mean, 10 episodes that we did.
Yes, included. We had people coming in, donating stuff.
Yes, which
Absolutely
is
a labor of love.
yeah, this was like a real huge effort for us to really give you some amazing, wonderful content. And for that to be literally lost, like no evidence or footage or anything of all the work that we did, was a little bit disheartening. But I also believe that it was the right thing, because moving forward in this way is just, I think it's just better for us and our comfortability and our ability to show up authentically and not feel any concern or worry after the two attempts that we had previously. So I'm glad in the grand scheme of things that it worked out the way it did.
No, for sure. And if not, and even if not now, maybe later. Um, but just wanted to shout out like so many dope community owned businesses that just showed up and showed love. And I think that was a huge letdown and disappointment for us too. Like we were really excited to be using our platform to do what we built Soco Ray to do, which is serve the community, and not just through the aspect of mental health, but businesses, economic, etc. So we were excited to plug people, to put them on. We were happy that people trusted us and believed in us enough to want their products to be put on. It was really a treat. Like y'all was in, y'all was in for a treat, and not wanting to dwell there, but I absolutely want to give all those folks their flowers, because although you didn't get to see it, it was, like I said, still a huge labor of love, not just from the three of us, but literally from I don't know how many businesses and a whole crew of people.
Yeah.
So yeah,
But we're
Well,
gonna, we're gonna make it right. You know, them giving to us, that's an energy. That's energy, right? And for us to not be able to give the energy back, I think is what is bothersome. So all y'all vendors, trust and believe, we gonna even this out. You will get energy back through us to you, and we thank you.
for
yeah.
sure, for sure.
So now that we touched on that, y'all hit us in the DMs if I don't know, with some love, some support. Who knows? But again, happy to be back, and just roll with us. We figuring this out, and we excited that y'all are on this ride with us as we figure out doing this shit ourselves. So all feedback welcome. Blow up the DMs. We'll try to address as much as we can, but let's ride this ride together.
Yeah.
Yeah, let us know what you want to us to touch on in these episodes. If there's anything specific that's, impacting your life or the life of others, or just some questions you may have there about therapy or the process, or whatever you're experiencing, that's helpful for us to be able to share things that really connect with our audience. So anyways, getting back to how life has been lifing. We thought that would be a good way to like kind of move into this podcast, is really talk about all the adjustments and things that we've all been experiencing since we've been away, and how that might resonate with those that are tuning in.
Yo, I was meeting with Ashley, an associate at Soco Ray Therapy this week, and maybe it was last week, and we were doing the good faith estimates, right? A form that we have to give to our clients, and we have to diagnose on that form. And I was reviewing hers, and I noticed I typically lean toward adjustment disorder with, whatever anxiety, depression, whatever she's presenting. And she was not giving adjustment. She was giving acute stress disorder. And I'm like, I didn't think of that one. That is a great one. That is actually what it is. It's acute stress
Yeah.
because of the adjustment. So yes, I'll start by saying that I think I've experienced this much stress in my life before, but I wasn't equipped to feel it, or my psyche knew I couldn't handle feeling. I'll say this is probably the second most stressed I've been in my life, but it's the first time I felt confident enough to open up to my experience. And that could potentially take you out if you don't have the proper support when you face your true emotions, and especially those that have been repressed for so fucking long. That is, in essence, that's the definition of a psychotic break too, is like stress and pressure is so heavy on you that you can no longer hold, and the volcano must erupt. And all that you've been holding and hiding is like, hey, oh, hey. So if you're not grounded and don't know what's happening, you could legit think you're fucking going crazy through the past few years.
Yeah. And I mean, if you think about it, it's like, go ahead, Rob.
And I was saying, especially if you're breaking some generational cycles, or or doing things that go against what's familiar to yourself and the people around you.
And I think in so many ways, and I hadn't even thought about it until now. I think it's also probably this tension of who we were pre-pandemic, who we were in the pandemic, and now that I guess it shifted to an endemic or whatever it is, but now that we're out of like this crisis, so to speak, and I feel like now, like whether it's politically, economically, etc., we're starting to feel like the results, inflation, all of like that shit. But beyond that, I think in a sense it's probably like a culture shock. Like we literally went from our everyday life to in an instant, like we're stuck, we're locked, and then it's like, all right, cool, like back to life. Like I hear jobs that were like, oh, we'll probably never go back to in person. Like they're like slowly all of the undoing we did is being redone, and it's kind of a scary thing, and I think people's systems are probably in conflict. I know for me that's happened where in the pandemic I think I worked way more than I have because, like most people, I think I leaned into grind culture, which is something I'm learning to unlearn and to resist. But I leaned into it and was like, let's get this bread. Like the opportunities here, we working from home. You could have 10 jobs. Who would know? Like so it was like lean into it. Let's do it. And now I even realize I can't push myself like that. Like even when I want to, there are days where now that I've made so many leaps. So I guess in the time I've been going, I was also taking some leaps. I used to probably talk about all my projects and the team would talk about how busy I was, and I've shifted and I'm betting on me and full time with Soco Ray, trusting and doing, and it's been great, but it was a scary adjustment. Again, I had been grinding, turned it up to like hyper grind, and then in this shift, I realized, okay, I'm trying to rest. Part of my system is kind of like you used to work a zillion hours a week, now you work this many, like you got it, like grind. So it's just like this back and forth tension of like the old, the new, and what we want our new normals to look like. And I'm not sure we, on top of the fact that we slowed down, shit that we probably didn't have to sit with came up. And I guess I'm just saying all of the shit comes at you at once, and now life is back, and it's probably like, well, what do I do with all of this?
with
Oh
all this
man,
news.
that's this. I don't even know if you could call it post pandemic, but I guess yeah, like this adjusting to like how you're supposed to like re-enter life in a way because things did just kind of like say, well, it's over. So
Mm-hmm.
everybody, go back to manning your post in some way. And I think that that's the thing that came up with clients a lot because there were people who struggled to just go back to normal, and then there was or abnormal, go back to the old abnormal. But there were people who threw themselves into like doing all the things, making up for all the lost time because there was so much grief around like 2 years of life that felt like people at different ages of their life feeling like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be 30 now in 2023, and I thought my 20 year 28 and 29 was going to be this discovery of like who I'm going to be for the rest of my life. Meanwhile, it's like, girl, please, I'm 42 and I'm like still out here
Scratching the surface,
very
huh?
much so out here looking for what is next and why and how. There is no 30 is not the age that you finally figure it out. Just, I hate to like, spoiler alert. Still gonna be going through it, but it's good and it's growth and that it never stops. But I think a lot of people felt a lot of grief and loss and trying to figure out who they are right now. Even my sense of self, like Soko was talking about, like all these things breaking down around us in our lives because we're constantly rediscovering and like understanding who we are. Like I had serious panic attacks like I had years ago when I was first diagnosed with anxiety and panic disorder, and I was like, girl, I thought we were past this. But I know more now to know that I'm not that person that struggled with in the past, but it still was a task to use what I know now to like help, to manage those things and learn new things. Even as a therapist, there is no end to like once you go to school, all the tools to fix all of the things that go on with us, right? It's ever evolving, and it's such a complex system of things that work together to help us to feel a sense of wellness. And I had to learn what wellness actually felt like for me. I didn't know what wellness really meant. I didn't know, I had no idea what healthy was. I thought healthy was like, I feel good. I finally feel good completely, as opposed to feeling like, no, you can feel good, but still have aches and pains. You can feel good and
Mhm.
still
Mhm.
have stress. You can still feel anxious because all these things are normal emotions. And so that was me still overcoming my life experiences, as there's some perfect space that we enter when we've figured out how, or have this alignment between our mind and our body. But it's just an ongoing process that we're leaning into. We're challenging sometimes, we're coping at other times, and we're surrendering, like I think most of us have been doing, to figure out, like, just let me surrender to this real quick and see if I can coexist with this discomfort and still find joy and peace amongst that. And I think that was my journey over the last couple of years, where I found some good balance,
Yeah.
in all those things.
Yeah, it sounds like what both of you are talking about is kind of like a redefinition. Rob used wellness. Tris talked about grind culture, but I think like kind of like redefining success, redefining a good life, right? What it
Yep.
actually means. And it's like, okay, it's how I relate to work and how I don't overwork myself. It's how I feel in my body. Like when I open my eyes and realize I'm awake in my body, like what's it like in there, right? Like how does it
Yep.
feel, really getting granular about all these things. I think redefining success is something a lot of us have been doing, and it it's a huge paradigm shift. You have to fucking undo, and then you ask yourself like, well, okay, well now I want to know why I was doing all of that,
Yeah.
because when I get to the bottom of that is when I really understand myself and can heal.
Yeah.
Quite stressful, and for me it was like, I'll get into this more as this podcast goes on, but I had a very intense healing journey over the past 2 years, like isolation to the most extreme. Um, Knowing though the whole entire time, like this is serving me, having to literally cut off communication with family members, and I'm talking like the very closest people to me, about 5 of them. Literally, like I can't talk to you anymore because you are pulling me to who you want me to be and not who I am.
Hmm.
Um, and that's hard because you're like, all right, while I'm setting this boundary, I'm hurting, and guess what else is happening? I'm fucking growing. I'm learning myself, and then I have to re-enter spaces with people who aren't growing. There are some people who y'all probably know them. I'm like, damn, y'all made it through this fucking pandemic and y'all ain't different.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're like, how'd you miss it? How
Yeah.
did you miss it? And then it's like,
Uh-huh.
shit, how do I love you? How do I now hold space for this relationship? How do I accept you for who you are and not allow there to be distance? But naturally, if I accept who you are and your limitations in my life and how you restrict me, I have to create distance. Then you have to
Yeah.
navigate, am I a bad person? Am I bad because I'm creating distance? Right? All these things, like, oh shit. Lots of stuff to face, lots of new boundaries, lots of feeling like you may be a bad person for your new boundaries.
Yeah.
Um, which is why I think community for me, you all, I think even pre-pandemic, we were all there together, but to have a group of people who are at a similar level of consciousness
Yep.
is so important through this shit, or else you will feel like you might be doing this wrong, right? Like,
Yeah.
oh, maybe I should go back to the old way. No, keep trekking forward. So
Yeah.
yeah, community is super important through this process.
No, 100%. And I think listening to both of you, what came to mind to me too, if I focus on the pandemic, it was like a lot of healing that happened in a vacuum, so to speak, right? Like we're by ourselves, really like it was a hard time to be a therapist, but a great time. When you think of like it's a great time to be alive. Like if you signed up to do the work like in our own way, like we were on the front lines for sure, like saving lives in our own right. And I think again, so much healing in a vacuum. There were not by and large, so not generalizing to everybody, but there were, like Soko said, isolation. So as you're learning things, as you're processing things, it's making sense to you, but you're also not engaging in the world in a way where you now are practicing the things you're learning or having to put this into action. So that's where I speak to the vacuum. Like I have so many clients who, to Rob's point, where Rob, you just said, like, man, girl, I thought we was past these like panic attacks and stuff, and now they're back. I think just using that example, or they were back, just using that example. Again, I have so many clients who are like, I thought I was over this, and I'm like, no, it's not about whether you were over it or not. Now that life's back to normal for whatever normal means, Now it's just opportunities to start putting it into action. You wasn't kicking it with your mama who you got all of these issues with. You wasn't kicking it. You wasn't in the office with the boss who treats you like shit. So you didn't have to have a difficult like. So logically, it was making sense. Emotionally, you was feeling validated and good, but you weren't having. I had couples who were like, I thought we were good. We have our, yeah, because y'all were just at home. So whatever behavior you didn't like, if it's so and so always out in the street, well, so and so wasn't always out in the streets because they
Yeah.
couldn't be. So again, I think so many things happened in a vacuum, and now it's like, ooh, real world. So I guess I say, don't stress. Now just see it as like that was all training, and now you back to game day, and it's like time to use those things. And I always tell people, healing can be tedious, healing can be annoying. Taking the healthy route can feel exhausting. Like just because it's for your good doesn't mean it feels good. So if it hurts, if it's hard, I wouldn't necessarily, I would encourage you to try not to see it as, am I doing this wrong? Is this not the direction I should go? And again, more so just see it as shit. Now I'm just practicing this stuff. And what happens when we practice? It's gonna be trial and error. It might take a while. Them affirmations you believe, now that you back interacting with people, you may be like, damn, them shits don't work. Keep doing, like, in general, keep up with your routine. And I think as life gets back and the hustle and bustle picks up, I'm finding where taking care of ourselves is shifting back to a space of something that needs to be earned, deserved, and optional. And I think it's our responsibility to make sure that those things remain non negotiables. Don't let go of the shit that had you feeling good in the vacuum. Now it's time to use that alongside the inks of everyday
Yeah.
life.
I like that, just because I'm thinking like I feel like the conversion many of us made was we moved from considering wellness as like the optics of wellness to the feeling of wellness. Like, no, what does it feel? Not that's why the vacuum was helpful. We ain't worried about fucking optics right now. How does this feel for you? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Something you mentioned too is, I think it's important to talk about, is healing culture, right? And the sensationalization of healing via the internet
Mm-hmm.
or via social media, because that's what we were tuned into, for all of our engagement, socializing, entertainment, and things of that nature. And healing was one of the things that I think came to the forefront. And I think it's a positive thing in the sense of, like, yes, it is important to tune in and understand how important it is to understand our mental health and our bodies and how all of these things work together for our wellness. But also to be careful of not sensationalizing healing, and it become performative, versus it actually being something that you're connected to and it's meaningful. Something I tell my clients and for myself all the time is that, like, there is no formula to this thing, right? Everybody is having their own individual experience where it might seem like the right thing to do to meditate for an hour, because you see that online and that's what someone is saying is that the proper way to meditate or whatever the case may be. Whereas, like, I have clients who've done those things and they're like, I meditate every day for an hour, but there's no connection with the practice, right? Where it's like, I might tell you to say, like, well, let's not meditate for an hour a day. I want you to do, first thing you wake up in the morning is to check in with yourself just for 1 minute, check in with how you're doing. And that's your practice for the day. And that is way more meaningful than just sitting and necessarily breathing and listening to meditative music, because it's like you're saying, I'm the most important thing right now. I start my day off with checking in with me before I check my phone, before I check on anybody else. That is reinforcing that I have self love, that I'm important. And that might be more meaningful for 1 minute a day than to do all the practices that you see online, where you've got your sage going and, your Palo Santo, and you're, listening to all the solfeggio frequencies and sound baths and yoga. All those things are wonderful, and if they're useful and effective, great, keep doing them, but make sure that it is really connected to your individual process and there is meaning that you're finding behind that, and you can see how it's translating into how you interact with yourself first and how you interact with other people in your life, and being sure that it's not just something that you're posting on Instagram, but it's really, and sharing is great too, because we all need to feel encouraged by other people's healing processes, but recognizing when it's getting caught up in the healing culture and the coolness of healing and wellness, and less about is how effective it really is for you and your personal growth.
I want to add on and just say that I think some people might hear that and be a bit discouraged. So for those who are discouraged by that, I want to let you know that me at the age of 39, I wouldn't say my healing was performative, but I'll say I used to try all the things. And I didn't hit a turning point until I was 37 in it. So I think sometimes you just have to keep trying the things and you may not find that intimate bond or connection. I've been meditating for years. I got serious about it 3 years ago, but I've been meditating for years, and I don't want, for me, meditation is a practice. And so all of those years, even though I wasn't connecting, those count because it was me getting in the habit of sitting, right? And being with the discomfort of. So if you are trying healing modalities and you're not connecting or finding what you're looking for, that may mean that it's not time for you. I study the stars and astrology, and there are current transits that actually open you up to, okay, now it's time. Now it's time to open up and connect. You're more likely to be able to connect during this time. So sometimes it really is us trusting the timeline of our life and doing the best we can each step along the way.
Yeah.
For sure. I agree.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think like to both points, right? And like that's the balance, and like that's the ebb and flow. Like whatever it is you're doing, what I hear you both saying is like, are you just present in the journey, or are you just? And it's crazy because that's been the theme of a lot of my sessions and I talk about like us being on autopilot, and sometimes I think we can be like on autopilot, where again we're just doing things because we should be doing things and not because we really believe in the things, or back to the piece of Soco's check-in, like, oh, what are you feeling good about? We're not stopping and checking in with ourselves. We're just doing stuff to say we did it. But are we checking in with ourselves? Is it like to your point, Soco, you were trying things and as they weren't working, you were open to new things versus the people who's like just keep trying the same thing, and it's like, hey, did you ever stop to see is this actually working or not? Or did you just start doing it and you're like, I do it now? And I know I've been there too, where I'm just doing shit and I'm like, I never once stopped to ask myself, is this helping or not? I just was like, the fact that I'm doing this should be enough. And then I'm like, okay, seconding now at this age, I'm like, nah, I want to check in with self and be like, okay, I need to pivot, or is it enough for me to just go to therapy and have surface check-ins when I might know I really got some shit that I need to talk about? Now, at what point am I going to change that versus just kind of being like, well, I get to say I go to therapy and that's cool. So no, absolutely try all of the things, right? And then at the
For
same
sure.
time, check in with yourself and see how is this serving me? How is this turning out? So that's always what I encourage people to do. Try everything in the world, but just be checking in with yourself. Don't do it on autopilot. Where now, to Rob's point, you just have the things to say you have the things, but
Checking
Yeah.
combine
Yeah.
both. Yeah.
Absolutely. Try as many things as possible. I've tried tons of different types of ways to connect with myself, and I don't believe that those things are like stationary, like now that I've found this thing that it's going to be this thing for the rest of my life. I think depending on how life goes, we're going to be shifting and changing into different practices that feel good to us at different stages and times, and being open to that, and like Trish said, being very present to how it's making us feel, right? Moving away from this idea of something being right or wrong, and more so what feels good to us and what doesn't, so that we can ask the questions why this might not be feeling good to us, or why this does feel good to us. What are we gaining? So that we know that it's leading us to, a healthy relationship with ourselves, so that we can then have healthy relationships with people outside of us.
I got to say, I like you calling out the sense of the I can't even say the word. Say it, the sensationalization. Did I say it right? But sometimes I'm like, I got to slow down when I'm talking because then I get tongue tied. But I was gonna say, I ain't gonna lie to y'all. In the pandemic, my therapist folks, I love y'all, but a lot of y'all got muted because I think I had got to the point where like sometimes it can feel like you're drowning in healing, and part of the healing journey isn't to always think about healing every second of the day. Like it's okay to just be. Like, and that's a huge part of like meditative and mindfulness practice is just being and allowing for that to be healing in and of itself. Just sitting with where you are now. Like, I think that it was just a lot for me. Like I was like, where is regular stuff? Like my algorithm was everything was like affirmation, affirmation, which is great. But I was like, okay, I still want to laugh. Still want to see some ratchet. I was like, I have to mix this algorithm up because for me, constantly being in this deep reflective state, I'm a believer that none of us are supposed to live there 24/7. You're supposed to have fun. You're supposed to have like mindless moments. You're so like it's supposed to be, in my opinion, like a ebb and a flow. So also to folks out there, as you're trying all of the things, as you're doing the things, also so give yourself permission to trust that when you just resting and you ain't doing nothing self-help related, the resting in of itself is you healing. The breaks are you healing. It might be what you need. So I think too, yeah, I just had to say for me, it just was too much. Like the pages and stuff. So I guess I should say my therapist Instagram friends because I ain't like y'all, but also y'all talk about regular stuff. But
You know,
but y'all get what I'm saying. Like where you just kind of like I just need to just see the embracing Black culture where they just showing like a thread of Black tweets that got me cracking up laughing. Like right now, I might not need to be reminded of boundaries with the family. I ain't thinking about the family right now. And it was like for me, every post.
Like, I don't want to be my higher self at this moment, please. Thank you. I want to be
I'm just trying to
low
laugh.
vibrational, if you don't mind.
for me, I love that we're having this conversation because I'm feeling very different than what you just said. Like totally, I'm emerging from a major depressive episode that lasted over a year, which is the longest I've ever been depressed. And I was turned off by people who were. So for me, my major depressive episode took me to a new state of consciousness, a new vibration. And so like around small talk and things that seem like they gave you cheap thrills, I wasn't connecting. So I was more like, how are you guys? This is what the fuck you're interested in right now? Like the world is literally moving in a new whole fucking direction. So I was tuned into the affirmations and I was tuned into myself. And it was very hard. It was very hard. And I don't know too many people who could go through what I went through. I really don't, and come out on the other side. I needed to be in there. I was stuck, but I needed to be stuck because it's life for me is about surrendering. What do you feel and where do you need to be versus are you trying to chase a feeling away? So I spent 37 years chasing away bad through trying to be funny and hosting an event and doing this and doing that. So I'm giving voice to another side, which is it is okay if you can't tap into joy because that is what depression feels like. And if you can't find joy, there's nothing wrong with you, but you probably need community and you probably need a therapist or someone who can help you make sense of it. Because if you're in it and you feel like you're stuck, then that's problematic. But if you're in it and someone is helping you find the learning through it, then you're like, okay, this is forward moving and helping me. So I had a very opposite experience as you, Tris, but I also can understand why not everyone wants to be there because not everyone can understand it there, right? I couldn't understand joy then either. It's just not where the brain waves were connecting.
Yeah. And I love that you said that because I think it shows like again the spectrum. And I talk with my clients a lot about life existing on the spectrum. And as much as we'd love to live in like the pleasant and comfortable emotions, those emotions wouldn't be pleasant and comfortable. We wouldn't really put them on this pedestal if we didn't know what depressed, sad, disappointed, if we didn't know what those felt like. Like, so it has to be a balance and both require each other to exist. So I love that even within this dynamic, we were on different places in the spectrum because you're right. It's about like, what did you need? Like for me, when I need those things, I'm able to like tap into them. But for me, like to your point, like that's not the space I was in. Like I felt like through therapy, I was handling my shit. Like for the most part, I was in a different space, right? Of like, life was kind of fun. Like things was cool. Yeah, it was a pandemic, but like things was cool. Like life was happening and moving. So I think for me, those things didn't match where I was and what I needed. And the same for you. Things like that match where you were. So I think hopefully in you all hearing this, you hear from the three of us that there's no right or wrong way. Like none of us are like, well, you was being dismissed, like you was dismissing your experiences, and the other ones are like you was being too deep. We just like, oh shit, that's what you needed. This is what I needed, and that's okay. So I also think to Rob's piece just about the sensationalization, I think sometimes, like social media in general, we get caught up in keeping up with the Joneses, and I think that there's a difference between, and because I know Soco really well, there's a difference between Soco who is truly on the journey and homeboy or homegirl who just love being cool and and like they just, and it's because that's the thing, like if you think of like the woke, like the some, I think that there's like different levels of it, like people who are truly there, and then those of us who is just cool and it's the it thing right now.
Mhm.
So I think, I guess I'm encouraging people again with checking in, asking yourself, what do I really need? Where am I really at? And giving yourself permission to tap into what you need and where you're at.
One
Um,
thing that I'll say in a final thought before we, share some other things. I would say that myself, Soko, and Tris, I think the common thing that we've all done in this break is choose ourselves. And that has resulted in very different life adjusting experiences, whether it is giving up certain employment, whether it's like detaching from relationships and finding our sense of self and asserting that thing, or learning new ways to like understand who we are and stuff like that, and we have emerged from the fire and here we are today to
Phoenix
mhm.
Rising.
share all of the things that we've learned from our own journey and the journey of being a therapist to so many wonderful, dope ass people that are out here high functioning, but still dealing with trauma, grief, loss, stress, relationship issues. I mean, you name it, our clients are experiencing it, and we want to be able to share that with those of us that are that are not seeing us right now but could benefit from all the things that we're processing and helping others to process, so that you can walk away with some insight for yourself, and maybe get on your own journey with one of us or with someone else.
Yeah, nah, for sure. I feel like this conversation in and of itself has probably been a resource, but for y'all who've uh been riding this way with me, and I gotta say, I just love that in the space I feel no pressure to speak proper English because my mama used to be like, you got all them degrees and you saying I ain't going, and I'm like, and this is just what comes out my mouth. But all of that to say, I didn't got too caught up in the language, but pretty much I don't say, for those of you who've been riding this ride with us, y'all know we do our gym drops, so those ain't going nowhere. We still gonna be dropping gyms, and if someone dropped today, definitely let us know. We'll still be throwing out resources. A lot of our old flow will be back. So in that spirit, I guess Soka Rob, I feel like the conversation in itself hopefully was a resource, or at least a starting place for people to see my journey can be my own, even within my friend groups, because I think the beauty of this is outside of being colleagues, we're friends, and family. And I think in that, amongst your closest folks, journey don't got to be the same. So I hope like this serves as a resource and permission granting. Like I give myself permission to choose the things that serve me and the things that I need. But I'm also open if either of y'all have like a tangible resource for
So, Rob, I'm putting you on the spot, but I know you're going to have something for us. What is something people can do to release energy, like a practical tool, when they're feeling that anxiety and they want to get it out?
Well, I think we have to recognize that a lot of our innate ways to help ourselves in these situations are things that we probably did while we were children. And so it just comes natural to us when we're not thinking about it. I don't know if anybody's ever just kind of like, just felt like, oh, I just want to like shake this thing off, right? Like I feel like I got to get out of, get out of my own body, or I got to get rid of this feeling. Well, that's actually a really helpful way to stimulate energy while also releasing energy. And I do a lot of qigong, which in qigong that's like your chi flow, your energy. Sometimes we have these blockages that create this anxiety and stress and things of all from life. And so sometimes it's helpful to just shake your body out, bounce, 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 bounce until you feel like some form of regulation. Tapping is another one that Soco just mentioned, and talking to yourself in a loving way, making sure that you remind yourself that you are safe in this present moment. Emotional freedom technique is another way to do tapping, where you're talking to yourself while also tapping certain energy meridians in your body that help with circulation. So you might say, like, one of the tapping points is above your eyebrow. You might say that even though I'm feeling uncomfortable right now, I love and accept myself in this moment, right? Even though I'm experiencing extreme anxiety and I feel uncomfortable, I love and accept myself in this moment. And so going through the different points, you can be telling yourself that, which is very soothing, right? With regular calm breathing. And also it helps to use like all the grounding senses. You're feeling the tapping, you're speaking, all these things that kind of help to bring us into the present moment. So those are some ways to tap and use your body to kind of like regulate the nervous system and kind of center you back into the safe space of your body.
It's so helpful. It's so novel for us. And to me, those kind of methods are fast acting. It's like you want a quick little fix, hit this real quick. And also, I've noticed with the tapping tends to stay ingrained. The other like body movements are kind of like as needed. But this one, if you practice this, I've actually felt a physical change in my body as related to emotions. So yes, Thank you, Rob. And maybe if we can figure out show notes, it'd be dope to give folks a link to some emotional freedom technique, like a tapping resources. Because y'all, you can teach yourselves this stuff. You don't need a therapist to teach you how to tap on your body. That's your body. We can't touch you anyway. So
yeah.
Hey, that's real.
A great self-healing tool. And I hope to share more of those things that you can do at home that might be helpful to regulate that nervous system.
And for those of y'all who are ready or think you're ready to start your therapeutic journey, come fuck with us over at Soco Ray, www.socoray.com. The three of us are there. Shameless plug that I'm going to keep plugging. But we've built up a pretty solid team. We got you covered, your kids, if you got kids. So
everybody, your mama.
And I think those of you who rode the ride before, we were pretty good at just shouting out different therapists doing the work. And there's so many dope people doing the work. And as our team has grown, for sure, always wanting to circle back to the home team and show love to the home team. So that's what we'll be spending some time doing. So again, follow us at your favorite therapist and check us out. Tell your friends, tell your mama, because she probably need to come too. but yeah, we're gonna catch y'all next time.
We love you.
Thank
you.
Chill and chill as fuck podcast.
We in here, baby.
Let's get it.